So hi, everybody. So today we're going to talk about functions. Let me just set up this really quick. Yeah. So I'm just going to set up my environment. So let's start. So functions are very important to work on JavaScript because we can use them. It was very similar to doing like well, we already learned CSS, so it's something that you can use very similar to that. I'm going to show you in a minute. How can you be reusing those functions and reducing your code? But before we jump to that, you're probably going to find if, well, when you're doing an exercise or reading a book, sometimes the book would say, or the task would say something like declaring or defining a function. When you see that, I'm going to paste it here, is basically the same. So, so if you hear that, I just want to start with this because I remember when I started, sometimes I get confused, and when I hear those terms, I didn't know what exactly I need to do. So if you hear either declaring or defining a function, it's just the same thing. So, okay, so let's start now. So the syntax for a function, we're just gonna do something very similar as when we were defining a variable, but in this case, they have their own syntax. So we're gonna start with the word function. That's the way we're gonna tell that this is a function. So in this case, I'm gonna do, it's gonna have a name. It's gonna have an empty parentheses. We can fill these parentheses, but we're gonna jump to that later. So if we can also check our value. So this can help us to make like wrapping our code. That way we will be able to use it later or many times as we want. So right now, let's start just by defining the function. So here we can say printing, sorry. And just don't forget to add your semicolon at the end. And so in order to see, if when I run my function, nothing is going to happen. Because now, even though I have my console log here, nothing is happening because I need to do something very special with functions that is calling the function. So the way that you're going to call the function is just adding the name at the bottom. So now if I run my code, it's going to print what is inside. And we can see it printing here. So, okay, so this is the basic syntax. We're going to say function. We're going to have a name. Always have our parentheses here, and then we're going to have our curly braces here where we're going to add what is going to happen in our function. In order to make it work, we need to call it. And that's when the way that we're going to call it is by adding the name at the bottom. So, okay, so this is just like the first part. So, okay, so then we talk about adding values to this. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to add something that's called parameters and those empty parentheses. So I'm going to add another function, and you can see the difference. So I'm going to say print parameters. Here, let's say parameters here, or just like a variation of that. And then I want to add again my curly braces. You see, it's the same syntax. I'm just adding something here. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to console log what I'm passing there. So I'm going to do my parameter here. And again, as we mentioned before, we need to call a function. But we're going to have to add a value in my sorry, we're going to add something here. So I can just copy. I'm just going to copy and paste it to make this faster. So here, what we're going to do in this case, what I'm going to add is going to be I'm going to add a string. So now if I run it, I'm calling my function here. And when I'm calling my function, I'm adding my parameter here. That is actually over here. So when I run this, I'm going to see my parameter. So, okay, so now, but it happens something here. So when we have this value here, this is called, oh, sorry, Angie. Oh, I thought she had a question. I don't know.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how do you know what type of variable is that parameter in the inside the parentheses? Like, how do you know that's a string or an integer or a boolean?
Well, that's the beauty of JavaScript, right, Professor Hamil? Like, we can also pass a number. And when we run this, let me clear it. We will get a number. So it's very flexible. So, okay, so yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah, so that's the beauty of JavaScript. Like, you don't have to deal with the types like with other languages, that you have to declare them and be very specific. Okay, so what is happening here, this is also something that you might find if you're reading a book or following a tutorial, is it when we pass a value here, this is called, well, this is going to be a parameter, but here at the bottom, this value is called an argument. So here we have an argument, and when we pass over our function, it's going to turn into a parameter. So this is, I know it's a little strange, but that's like, it's kind of like in the moment that the function takes the value and it's going to play with it, now it's a parameter because it's part of the function. But when you're passing the value here, this is going to be an argument. Yeah, so just remember that. I just want to mention those because I remember when I started, I was very confused about that. I was like, well, it's talking about argument, and then now it's a parameter. So it's just that the way that it works, and you might gonna find it like that if you're reading a book or following a tutorial or maybe an instruction. So when once is in the function is a parameter, when is the value is assigned, and where you're calling the function, that's going to be an argument. Okay, so very sad that we can pass a string. We also just said a number. So we can pass more than one value or parameter into our function. So I don't know if I should reuse that, or maybe I should just do another one. So, oh, sorry. And then let's do something like print sum. And then here I'm just gonna add X and Y. And let's do, actually, let's console log the sum. X times Y. And then here, I'm just going to pass my values here. So again, I just copy that. I don't want to have any typos. That's why I'm also copying it. Okay, and then here, so we can pass 4 and 9. And then if we run this, sorry, I think I should like organize my code a little better. Sorry, this is a typo. So I put that, run again. Maybe making more space. It's been a little weird. I feel like I'm making it all like tight. I just want to make sure that this reads like it's a different function. Okay, so okay, what I was mentioning earlier, the beauty of functions is that you can reuse them. So if you have some logic that can be reused, and especially if you're gonna have multiple values, an example would be maybe if you're trying to get the average or of like grades of students, so maybe you can pass all the grades and have all the students in an array, passing them through a function. So I can keep calling this function with different numbers, like for example, it's 7 and 10. We can also call it again. So we can call these functions as many times as we want. So let's do 3 and maybe 2. So then we clear this, we run our functions. and we can get the calculation of all the values. If you see, just by calling the function and passing these arguments and reusing the function, it's saving us already a lot of code. That's what I was talking about at the beginning, about like something similar to CSS. When we have CSS and we are attaching or adding our class to our tag, we can add that class to many tags as we want, and we are like optimizing our code because we don't have to write a lot. So that's something that you can do with this function. And something like to add something of what you asked me earlier, so we can also pass different values. And it will still work. So in this case, what it's doing here is like with the plus sign is just as a review, is doing the concatenation. That's why it's not doing the equation. It's recognizing that this is a string. So it knows, the program knows that it needs to concatenate instead of doing a sum of the words. So yeah, any questions right now? We're gonna continue, but I just want to make sure that yeah. So any value that we pass through a function, is gonna be printed. But in this case, that's what I picked the sum, because that way I can add the string. Obviously, we try to multiply a string, but I don't think that's going to work. So, but with the sum, it's just gonna recognize as a string, so it's gonna concatenate. Okay. So that then we do have. I'm just going to delete all this, I'm going to delete all this. I don't know if anyone wants to take a screenshot, but I'm just going to delete it, or I can give you this later if you guys want.
Also, one thing is a little bit of a zoom in would help, because I think recording usually is a little bit more fuzzy. So not that kind of zoom. If you do like a that's a little bit bigger. Yeah, that should be good. Yeah.
Okay, I can make this one over here.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah, recording usually is a little bit fuzzier. So.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make it try to don't pass my boundaries here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna delete this one now, and we're gonna do something else. So we also have another way to use our functions, or declare functions, that's with this called function expressions, and you might see that. So function expressions, I think it sounds like this. Okay, so, and what is first, like before we jump into see it, let's review what is an expression. So if I have a count, and then I have something like count, and I assign this to 10. Well, here we define a variable, but it's also called an expression. So we can also declare a functions this way. So we do print, and let's do again like I was doing before. Let's do printed. And then here I can assign the function as the value. Oh, sorry. And then here, so I have an open constant by this, my brackets. The log. Print. And then, so right now I have it right here. And again, like we explained before, if I try to, not make clear, it disappear. Can I make this one like a little smaller? Maybe that's going to be the best solution. I know it disappears to clear. Okay.
I think if you do, you have a PC, right? Or Mac?
No, I have a Mac.
Okay, so I think if you do command plus.
Oh, maybe that's better, right?
Yeah, if you do a couple times command plus,
yeah, that's good.
Is that good? It doesn't do a scroll, but yeah, if you do a little bit more.
Okay, one more, okay.
Yeah, and then you can hide the console quite a bit because all you need is, okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I can.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have there the function. So again, as we explained before, like we need to call the function. So if right now I run this function, nothing is going to happen. So I need to add in this case, we can call this function. I think call it like this if I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. So I prepared this class like so yeah, we have it right there. So I do it twice. Okay, so this is the way that we're going to call a function. Now our syntax is a little different. So this is a function expression. This basically you have declaring like a variable, and then you have the name, and in that you with your assignment operator, you are like declaring this function. Then I want to talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but if you only have this function, it would be an anonymous function. So, so I mean, what I mean with that is if you don't have this is an anonymous function. And this, I don't think, well, this won't work, even though we are calling it a thing. Yeah, it's going to give you an error. There is a way to print it with, with a different syntax, but we can come back in a minute. So let's continue with this one. Okay, I'm gonna clear this. Okay, so then we can create as many functions this way. So we can actually we can have in our document many functions. So print again. We can also function, and then here we can have that. We can console log. Maybe print again. Again. And again, like the other one, we always have to call the functions. Running. And we can also, as the other one, we can pass parameters here. So let's go print parameters. We can do the same. Oh, sorry. Function. Let's do A and B. And then it's brackets here. And it's the same console log. This time I'm just gonna pass the values and print them. So we can call a function here. I'm sorry, here at the bottom. And pass the values. In this case, I'm gonna pass 10 and 20. So we run it. So, okay, so right now, so we see that we can add, well, in this case, again, we pass our parameters here. And here is our arguments. So, all right, we call our function, we pass our arguments, they turn into parameters here. And then we console log them. We just pass in the values. We can, like the other one, we can make equations. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I pushed the wrong button. So we can also do calculations. So we can run that again, just for demonstration purposes. So, okay, so we have done something with our functions, but it's missing something that's very important that I didn't mention at the beginning with the syntax. And this is because first I want you to see that you can do things with functions and get a little bit familiar with the syntax. So when you work with functions, like in these functions and the other ones that I did before, it's missing something very important. That is a return. And I know until now we have been using the console log to see what is happening and have it display here. but the return is what is going to help us to share the content of the function in our program and work with it in another function. So I'm going to delete this. Well, before I move forward, are there any questions? So good. Okay. Okay, nice. Okay, so I need to delete this. So now we're going to talk about return. Okay, so basically, sorry. So now what we're going to learn is, so if we have a function, this is what we have been doing. I'm going to do this again. C, D. And then here we can do console log. No, I'm going to do my return. So this is what we need to pass our value. So we can do in this case that. And then we're going to call our function, and that's what we always need to do. Here we're going to pass 2 and 3. And let me put this. So, but it's going to happen something that well, we're going to think that nothing is happening, but it's really happening. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but this is the correct syntax to use a function in your program. So we have been using the console log, but that's because we are like displaying our values here in the console. That's what it's called, a console, and we send those logs over. So every time you have a function, you need to have a return to return those values. And that way other functions or your program can use them. Other way is just not, you are just doing things inside, but nothing is calculating, but it's not moving forward. So that's why like right now, I just want to make that distinction, because you're probably going to use the return and think that it's printing something. No, think that it's not printing anything, but in reality is passing your values to other functions, or doing a console log and you're thinking that you're passing like the final value to other functions, but it's not happening. You're only printing inside that function. So yeah, so that's why we use, if you're going to use the console log to see whatever is happening in this return, so you use it before. And this is like, I want you to think this more like a way to check what you're returning. And also you can debug with your console log. So it's a very important tool. But in reality, when you are returning is when you're passing those values to the function. I don't know if Professor Hamel has something to add.
So
Sorry.
yeah, your console log is just mostly for debugging.
Yeah.
So if you want to do it inside, it's because I want to know if anytime when you are, let's say, not sure what's happening. So let's say if you write some code and it's not working as expected, first thing you do is follow the lines. Like, what is your first line? So here the first line is the line number 4, right? Where I'm console logging. So I would just say, okay, what arguments I'm getting when I run it, right? So I want to make sure that what I'm expecting is what I'm getting. And so you do that, right? And then I follow the trace. And so that's how you use console log. In a web app, you use this some to show it into like some React app or some other visual based app, or if you're using Node.js, then you're just using some other calculations.
Yeah. And something that I'm sorry, Professor, maybe I could go.
No,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
So, but in a good practice, when you're done with this, is when you turn in your project or doing the final, after you check everything is working, or maybe you don't have any problems, you understand this function is very easy for you, and you know that there's no problems, and the final output is fine after you reuse this function. So it's deleting the consoles. So yeah, and just leave the return. Okay, so let's do another exercise. I'm gonna do a function just to practice more. And now let's do num multiply. Let's do A and B. We could have something different. This time I'm gonna console log and just to see the value in my console. And I'm gonna return. I'm gonna, yeah, when you're working with this, try to make it a habit to have them both, because if not, you can forget and then your program doesn't work, and it's just because it doesn't have a return. So I can actually copy this one. So same, okay, so let's call this function. So I'm gonna call them multiple times. So let's do 2. So I'm gonna call it again. Let's do 3 and 3. And let's do one more. And I'm just gonna pass one value. So, okay, so we're seeing how to pass, but in this case, let's see what happened when we have like arguments. I'm actually adding this at the end because it's gonna be easier to see what's happening here. So we can, as we talked before, we can pass arguments and they can match the parameters here, and then our function, we do the calculation. So whatever here, you can also have other logic, you can have a loop, you can have different things here. So do the calculations, do the return. But now we're gonna see what's going to happen when we don't have all these, well, in this case, our arguments don't match our parameters. So let's run this. Oh, I should delete that file. And we're gonna get this not a number. And that's because our second parameter has become undefined. So that's the reason why we're gonna get this. And there is a way to fix this. This is super easy. Just in case, if you think that your program can receive this, or when you're testing, you notice that you're having this problem, the easiest way to fix it is going to be assigning a value to the parameter that doesn't have a number. So, and to don't alter our values here, well, the number that we're gonna assign is going to be 0. So now if we clear this, we can run it. And we don't get, again, the error that we we're getting before. So let's just review it again. So the reason why we were getting before not a number is the NaN, that's what it means, is because this B number, when we didn't have this, the argument for this parameter, it was recognizing something that's called undefined. So then undefined is definitely not a number. That's why we were getting that not a number originally. So the way that we're gonna fix it is assign a number. And if you remember, numbers are, well, they're not like strings, like strings are immutable, but numbers we can reassign. So if you have a value, then is actually, if you can see here, is updating. Is not like, so here is just leaving the original, but over here it's like updating to a value. So yeah, any questions here? No? So yeah, so you see, even though we assign this to 0, our calculations here are not affected. So it's just gonna reassign that value to the number of the argument that you pass. Okay, so that was something I wanna check. And And checking something else, the it's also important. What about if when we are declaring a function, we do have like more arguments than the parameter? What's going to happen with them? So we can also print those. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to leave this too. So we do function. Oh, sorry. I guess one of my hands is faster than the other one. Collection of, I'm going to call this collection of things. So my collection of things is bigger. So then I'm going to do let's test first what's going to happen if I have also my A and B here. And I can console log. Or console log A. Oh, sorry, no. B. And now here I'm just gonna copy this too. I don't even know the collection of things. I hope I don't have a typo. So then let's do, I'm just gonna do the entire numbers here. Get the 8, 9, and let's run this. I'm gonna clear this, let's run it. And if you see, like, it's not reading the rest of my parameters. So this is not, if this is my code, this is not what I want or what I need. So the way that we're going to fix this is by adding, well, I forgot what is the name, but you just add this little dots over here, and it's going to help you to convert this into an array. And it's going to do this collection. And so now if we run this, to show you quick tricks, we have, it's printing our first value of A, and the second one, it turned into an array. So now we can access all these other numbers, but just remember that it's always going to be added to your last parameter. Then there is when the array is going to be created. I forgot what is the name of this one. Professor Hemel, did you remember?
Yeah, it's called a spread operator.
Spread operator.
Yeah, which means let's say if you have A and B and you
Mhm.
provide 1 to 9, so you can map the A to the first argument, which is 1, right? But
Mhm.
then B
I'm
to
sorry,
the
I did something.
yeah.
Oh no. Oh
Yeah, you
yeah,
can get
sorry.
back,
I
yeah.
thought, yeah.
And then B is nothing but all the other arguments as an array. So you'll get 2 to 9. Yeah.
Mhm,
It's a one-to-one mapping, right? So if you see if whatever the
mhm.
first one is should map to the first one, second
Yeah,
one to the second one. But here, because it's a dot operator, 3 dots, which means
yeah.
everything else.
But if I'm right, you can only do this with the second parameter, right? Or the last one.
Last
The,
one. You cannot do
the
first,
last.
right? It has to be last because it says rest of. It's also called rest parameter, which means it's
Rest
rest of the
parameter.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay,
Like
let's see.
when you don't know how many things you're gonna pass, you just say, oh, this is the rest of the things you have, right? That's
So then if we add another parameter here,
then
it would
it
like
would be A would be 1, C would be 2, and then
5.
B would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, let's just do it. Yeah, yeah, I remember it was like the last one.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see here like 1, 2, and the last one. Yeah, it's always at the last one. So yeah. Okay, cool. So let's continue. Any questions? We're gonna jump to another type of functions. I'm presenting functions. Today is everything about functions. Okay, cool. So now we're gonna see another one. Well, I think like when you're doing React, well, I guess you can use also arrow functions. So now we're gonna see arrow functions. I just type it in case. So, okay, so the cool thing about arrow functions is that, well, it's all these like good practices, I guess, like of writing less code and be more modern, and it's also more like industry standard. Maybe for a class, well, maybe for React is a requirement, but I think for mine it's not a requirement. But you have to know it because
Yeah.
you might see it, and maybe you got an interview that might ask you. And so practicing all of them is good, and also if you're planning to work in the industry, it's good that you know arrow functions. So okay, so let's start let's start with, well, maybe I should start with the one that we had before, and then I'm going to expand it. So some num. So if we have a function like we did before, like function, okay, and then we have our parameters. It's going to reuse that. And then I'm just going to do the console log just to show, but, and then I'm going to do a plus b. It's going to do one very simple. We're going to start with easy. Return. Always remember to add your return. We're going to do the same in the return. So that's there. Okay, so we have that. Maybe with space look a little better. Okay, cool. So and just remember, we just as a review, we have to call function always. So I'm going to pass these values 4 and 7. So if we run this, let me clear that, we run it. So, okay, we have the 11. Okay, so now I'm going to convert this one into an arrow function. So we're going to follow a similar syntax, but I'm just going to comment this. That way you can see how we change it. So I'm just going to do that. And also for my reference. Well, I'll change it. Okay, so we're going to have our cons the same. We're going to keep that. We're going to call the function the same. And then instead of having the function, I'm just going to have the parentheses. And there I'm just going to pass the values. And then we call it arrow function. Sorry, not that. It was the B. And then here we're going to have our arrow. It's going to be this. And then we're going to have our bracket. And again, we can have the same values here. If you see, the syntax is very similar. So, so now we have the name of our function, and then we are passing our parameters here. We're using the arrow, and then again, we have our brackets here, and that's how we are passing this value. So if I clear this and I run again, it should work the same. So yeah, and that's what I start with this one. So we already reviewed the syntax, the expression. That's why I start with the expression, because I knew we have to scale up this. So the expression, and then we have the name of this well, kind of variable function. But instead of having the function, we're gonna switch these two and have the arrow. And then we're gonna turn to this. But in this case, like if we are doing this, because I just talked before, like the idea is that we reduce our code and make it more modern. So we can also do something like this. We can, let me see, I only leave that one there. So we can also do something like, well, again, have the cons, the sum num. And we can do this only when we have like one line to return. If we have multiple lines, we recommend to be in the brackets, not doing this because it's not going to work. But if you have this, you can directly just do what you're going to return here and just have this, and it's going to work the same. So you can see here are like, well, let me actually clear it and run it too. Oh, but this is not going to print because I'm just returning. So in this case, to see what we are returning, we need to use our console log, our friend, to have it here in the console. So if I run, obviously when you are using the the arrow function for your word, you have to remove the console log, just leave it simple. But you can see here how we have reduced the code to just one line from like 3 lines, 4 lines, probably because the bracket over here. So we can reduce it to just one line. And this is the beauty, like in the modern code. So you're probably going to see this if eventually you're working in the industry and checking code, you're probably going to find those arrow functions. And yeah, just by the arrow, you can recognize it. So, okay. So then, I don't know, do you have anything else that you want to expand here, Professor? Or this simple is good for just starting with the functions, arrow functions?
Yes, arrow functions, you know, are just like regular functions, except the syntax is much shorter. There are some other nuances with arrow function, which we're not going to go into, but think of it as a simpler syntax. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just simpler, and yeah, we remove like many lines in the word function, so this time more condensed. Okay, so now other topic that's very important with functions. I'm gonna move to the next one. It would be nested functions. Okay, so for this one, so if I have a function, I'm gonna go back to my old syntax. If I have a function hello, and then here I console log. Hello. So obviously I will have to, for this, I'm going to do this like, you know, we can have nested loop, nested functions. But, and then right now I'm also going to talk about the scope, because this is the important part. But something that I want you to see is that you can nest your functions. So we have there hello, and then we're going to have a function or the other one, and then that, and then let's do semicolon here. And so the way to print this this nested function is that we're gonna call this function inside this function just for the part of the scope. And then we're gonna call this function. So first, like I'm gonna call the function outside, and just like that way you can see what's going to happen. So I'm gonna call hello, and let's see what's going to happen. And if you see, it's not printing my function inside. So then how I'm going to do to print the other function? Can I call the function outside? Let's test it. So we're getting undefined, and this is because we are out of the scope. So this is like very similar, like this function inside can access variables from this function, but this function cannot access this one. It's very similar like what we saw when we were seeing the for loops. So when you're declaring the variable I to start the counter, only works in the for loop. So if you have many for loops using the same variable inside the for loop, it's inside the scope. But in this case, we are not inside the scope. That's why this function cannot access this function. And we are getting undefined because it's not finding the function, even though it's inside this other function. So I know it's redundant. So where we're going to call this function is going to be inside this function. So then if we clear this, just by calling this function, we can call both functions at the same time. Yeah, so I don't know if this is clear. But yeah. I know the scope can be a little complicated to understand, especially at the beginning, but just remember everything this and the function this more in depth, like that everything that you declare inside this function, this other function doesn't have the access. But this function has access to what is inside. So what is over here. So if we have variables here, we will be able to access them from this one, but not the other way. So yeah. I don't know how to explain that more, Professor Hamiel. I understand that in my head, but I know the scope can be very complicated because that's a part where we can get a lot of errors.
Yeah, the scope I would this is how I would say a scope to simplify things. Is I would, let's say if I wanna see the scope of function world, then I would say, where is it defined? It's defined as line 5, right? Okay.
Mhm.
And then I would say, okay, then I would go up and I would find a curly bracket, right?
Mhm.
So the curly bracket would be hello, right? And then end a curly bracket would be at the line 9, right? So scope of world is, if you look at it as a function, it starts at line 5 and ends at the line 9, right? So the following curly bracket is where it ends. So its scope only exists until then. So you can call it within that. And hello is defined in line 11, right? Which means you can't
Mhm.
call it. So this is how I would usually look at scope. You, wherever something is defined, you go see where the next curly bracket is. If there is no curly bracket, then the last line. So for example, last line 12. So for example, function hello, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, it, if I'm trying to find the next curly bracket for function hello, right? Because its body is lined 3 to 9, right?
Mhm.
Then there is no curly bracket after that, which means it exists from line 3 to all the way to 12. But
Also, if it doesn't have a
we're,
bracket, yeah.
yeah, but the world only exists between line 5 to 9 because the next curly bracket is at line 9.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Actually, I do remember that I have another exercise. Maybe the other one would be a little clearer. But this was about nesting functions. So if you want to if you want to display your function, whatever you did in this function, you need to call inside like the last function that you're gonna call at the end to call them both. So we can say there's just one call for both functions. And that would be the function that's wrapping the entire this wrapping the other function. So yeah, I hope that that's clear. Okay, so I'm gonna move forward. So I'm gonna make another one. This is also about the scope. Doing something. I'm gonna take my this like that. Then I'm gonna have multiple variables here. 8, 5. And plus 15. And then now we're gonna console log. Okay, we console log 8, 2, 6. So I hope this explain it a little better. Let me see. Is that what I want to do? Okay, so let's now, I'm gonna do another one. It's going to be. So now if I'm doing something. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna call my function. So there we know that this is going to work. Sorry. So we have our values there, right? But what about if I try to console log outside this function? Is this going to work? So let's clear this one. Let's run it. And no, that's because we are, like we said before, we are out of the scope. So this is only going to work when it's inside. Sorry, I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to comment this one. Sorry, I don't want to do that. I'm going to comment this one. So yeah, so basically this is only going to work if we are inside the scope. That will be here. And when we are outside, it just doesn't work. So this is like the easiest way to see a scope. But let's do something that's a little more complicated. Okay, so now if we declare variables, so let's do x equals 6, and then we have a const. Right now I'm outside this variable. Just want to mention that. So y equals 11. Listen that. And let's do another one. It's going to be C. We can have different type of variables. So now if I do something like function, do something else. So, and I have my function there. So now if I console log these values here, they are outside my function. So I have X, I have Y, and I have Z. So let's clear this. If I run this. Oh, it's not working because I'm not calling my function. Sorry, it's my bad. So let's run it. So we can call it. So we have our variables. That's a little bit about the scope. So everything that we have outside a variable, we can call it here. But if we try to call something this inside the function, we cannot. So I mean, outside the function, what is like, and the function is wrapping our function, we can add those values here and call them. But the other way, we cannot. I'm not sure if now it's a little more clear with this exercise. Like you can see here, it's too bad I cannot make this one a little bigger. So we can see here that we have our function, we declare our values here. But when I try to call the function here, it doesn't work. And that's because we cannot access what is inside the function because the scope. We cannot access these variables inside the so that's why here's where our return is going to help us, but we are not going to return the values of the variables. That would not make any sense. We can just going to return our calculations. But we want you to think about this, the scope. This is very important because sometimes we can also think we already declared variables here, but they are inside this function, so we cannot reach them, and we can get also errors thinking that our program is going to work. So yeah, any questions on this? No. My God, I don't know if I'm doing pretty good or really bad. Right now, it could be either way. So okay, yeah. So so yeah, it's basically that the scope we had to see it. Okay, awesome. Get an answer. That's awesome. Okay. So now I want to move to the next one. I think I'm covering these topics really fast. Okay, cool. So let me do the next one. So here's nested functions. Where is here declarative functions? Let me delete all this. So now we're going to do something. I don't know if the professor have anything else to add to this one. I can go back.
Oh yeah, one thing I would say is think of scope is like let's say if you're inside a house, right? Um inside your room. You can access everything inside the room. So function is think of it like a room, right? So if I'm inside a function, I can access anything from where I'm standing, right? Uh, but I don't have access to kitchen if I'm inside a bedroom, right? Because kitchen is outside. But if I'm in outside my room, inside the house, I can access everything. I can access the kitchen. I can access my all my bedrooms, right? Uh, but what if I'm outside the house? I can access my house. I can access the city, right? If I'm outside the city, I can access the city and the state. So like that, if you have to think about it. Uh, if you close, if in a way you have, if you're inside something, you have access to only where you're in, what's inside, right? So if I'm inside the room, I can access all the cabinets, I can access the lamp, and everything, right? Uh, so that's how. So how many doors can I open? The only thing I cannot do is go outside and access the kitchen. So whatever room you're inside, you can access everything and everything that is inside the room, right? So if you're inside a specific function, you can you can access everything inside that function after that after the line, right? Um, uh, uh, and and anything that is outside. So that's how I see it.
Yeah.
It is a little bit complex if you think of it. Um, but you know, um, that's how I see it. You have to do a little bit more coding to get it. There's a concept of global scope, right? Global scope.
Yeah. The global
There's a
scope. Yeah.
there is a thing called global scope. There is a thing called lexical scope. Lexical scope means everything outside your function is accessible. That's a lexical scope. But in an uh
Other scopes.
outer scope. Let's say if I have my room and my sister's room, I can access my room and I can access anything in the kitchen. So think of kitchen as a lexical scope, right? But I cannot access my sister's room because my sister's room is her own property, right? So
Mhm,
that
mhm.
way. And she can also access the kitchen and her room, but cannot access my room, right? Because we have two separate functions defined inside a bigger function. So that way.
Yes. Thank you, Professor.
Mhm.
Okay, so now we're going to see something to scroll back. This is basically passing a function as a parameter. So again, we're going to declare a function. And now we're going to have, I'm just going to call this one code from function one, just to be very descriptive, right? Sometimes boy, I remember when I was kind of neat, like some functions have very long names, and that's because the description is important. This is something like if you're coding, if having a descriptive name is going to help you to maybe reduce comments, it's probably valid, right, Professor Hamel? So because you have to read to the code, and sometimes if you have something like my function, so you're not going to know, so something more descriptive will help you to fall into this. So I'm just going to do this one code from function two. So we're passing a function, and then we're going to have here that. So we're going to call a function function two. So we call it here, and then we're gonna do this actually very similar we were doing earlier when we have the nested function. So yeah, so now here it's just right now we are passing it as a parameter. That's the difference. So okay, so now what we're gonna do now is we're gonna add an our function one. Function one, I don't have a typo. So we're gonna pass a function. We're gonna pass the function. In here, we're gonna create the bracket. And here we're gonna do a console log. Gonna say hello from function two. So I hope this is clear. Just gonna run it to make sure I don't have any typos. I do. Let me see. Function two is not defined. I'm gonna do hold on. Let me do function two. Oh, I have a typo here. Okay. That's why I went in voice. Okay. So basically what is happening is that we have a function that we have this is going to be our function one, and then we are passing this other function. But and then we're calling the function n. That's very similar to what we did when we were having the nested function. But here we are passing the function as the value because we don't have a function two that we're passing here as a parameter. So the parameter of in this case, the argument is going to be the function. And if you see its entire syntax, but it doesn't have a name. So this is an anonymous function. So basically we created an anonymous function, and there we're going to pass our value here. So yeah, so that's what we are doing. So we are calling this function from inside the function, and that's going to make our callback. This is very simple. We need to see another example. But yeah, okay, let's do another one. So, okay, let's do another one. So let's see. So let's do another function. We can also pass more values from this function. Maybe we can do a function three. So we can also declare a function outside. We don't have to do it. I don't know. Maybe if you see the original, sorry, function. Here we have code from function three. I'm gonna call it different. Console log function three. So I don't know if this is gonna help it. We can try it. Right? So again, we're gonna call our function one, and then we're gonna pass the function three. And let's run it. So it's very similar. I know it looks more complicated because we are passing a function. It's like something that is nested. We do have more ones, but you can see now that we are basically having the function. We call the function, and then we have the function. And this one, the only difference with this one, if you see, is that it doesn't have this part. So it doesn't have a name. That's why I was saying this is an anonymous function. So but the syntax is the same. We do have the rounded brackets and the curly braces here, and we are passing the value the same as we're doing right here. we are just passing it there. So yeah, I hope this make it clear. It's just calling the function. I do have another one, this more complex, because the main thing about functions is they can be called when a condition happen, and that's what we're gonna see in a minute. So I'm just gonna delete this one. So cool. Okay, I'm gonna delete this one. So if we have a function, and then I'm gonna call this one because it is night. So it's night this side. So we can say, oh, no, sorry. No, that's not, I totally doing it all wrong. So if it's, what let's do is day, right? And the day we're gonna eat food. Sorry, I was totally thinking it all wrong. So I was mixing my if statement. So if I do it is night. So now here we're gonna call a function. So I will call food, that will be my function. And but also like if it's something else, like if I'm hungry. So then I'm also gonna go food. So now let's do so I don't know if this make a little sense here. So basically when we have so actually we can do our function. I know, but how are we gonna test okay, so it's basically like you're gonna have here a Boolean value, like we said not the previous class, but we were seeing not the previous class, but the previous class, we were seeing the if statements. So when a condition is met, that's when you will be calling your function. So the same way that we did as passing our what is the name, our value here, passing our function here. So we're gonna pass it, but when something is meeting, a condition is met, that's when we're gonna call our function. So this would be basically more like the way that you will be using the callback. Yeah, I don't know if the professor has anything to add to this one.
Yeah, so this is almost like a, I'll give you an interesting example. Let's say if I have a button and it has a click event, right?
Mhm.
So I can say, okay, if I press this button, it's going to do something, right? I don't know in advance what is it going to do, right? It can print a statement. It can change the, some pieces of my screen, right? Or it can send an alert. It can be it can do a lot of things. So I don't know in advance what is it going to do. So what I'll do is I'll pass the function, which will at runtime to see, oh, when I click, it should do this, right? So you have two things. One is a function that says click, right? And then there's a function that I pass in is what it will do when I click on it, right?
Mhm.
So in this case, the food would be whatever I wanted to change. Like, so I have this generic function called day, and I can pass food. I can say, eat a snack, I guess, I don't know, or eat a full meal or whatever, right? So it changes what you pass, what changes the behavior of this function. So it gives you a lot more power than something passing fix, right? Because usually function does something very fix, but by passing a functionality, you're making it dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know if the students have any questions, but obviously we have to, like I said, make this program bigger. But
You use it to you have to use it to once you use it for a couple of times, you'll know. Like
yeah,
if you know like a map function for arrays is a great example of how it takes uh something from it takes an array and then it doubles every element value and things like that. So NG asks, so you can change what the value does. You can change what you can change the functionality. Yeah, yeah. You can change. You can pass a function. Yeah.
Mhm. And make it trigger when you need it, when the condition is happening.
Let's say if you have a function called say something, right?
Mhm.
And then you have another function that you pass that actually says say this or something, right? And then that function would have if it's if it's if somebody cuts you off in the driving, you can curse them, right? So that say something you can pass instead of say something, say nice thing, you can pass say nice thing. If you pass say curse, it would you might want to show that map function maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I can go to the math function. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe that
that would
would
be
be
a
it.
that would help you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the math function. Function. Okay, so but for the map function, I do have the syntax here before I start typing it. Well, not like that. So we're gonna have but it's to me it's a little similar to like the for loop, because we're gonna have an index, like some things, like it needs some things to work. So also like this is gonna work with arrays. I don't know if this is what Professor wanted me to cover, but I think
Yeah, I can quickly cover it if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can finish this one better. I don't know if it would be attached to the other one. Okay, cool.
Sure.
So when you're creating so it's gonna create a new array from the calling function, and it's gonna go through each element and the array, and does not execute the function for empty elements. So that's pretty good. And also it does not change the original array. So that's also pretty good. So if I have an array, const numbers. So let's do 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10. And then here, I'm just gonna close that. And then again, we gonna have again, this is a const, and this is gonna be my new array. Then we have numbers. So the numbers, we follow the syntax, then we're gonna do the dot notation to add the map. Here we're gonna pass our number and add items. And then we're gonna pass the arrow function here. We're gonna have braces here. And we're gonna return number item. And I think we should return in doing something, so we can multiply by 2. And let's call this, I'm just gonna do a console log my new array. And we should get like, this in doubles. Let me see if I don't have any typos. Yeah. So if you see like we are using the arrow again. And the map is what is going to help us to go through iterate through the array. So here we can see that we can assign this. Oh, in this case, we are not using the console log here, so that's pretty good. I couldn't remember that we can use it this way. So you can see here. So we can return this. And I don't know if this is why the professor was like wanted me to show, but I don't think it's related to the other one, professor. The one that you mentioned, totally.
So basically, you know, the map function has so the arrow function that we're passing, right, is think of that as a callback function, right? So map is a generic function. Like I want to map. So basically, I want to have these numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, right? And I want to double every single value. So I'm going to pass a function. So if you look at that number item, which returns, so it's a simple function, number item, that returns basically whatever value you pass, it doubles it, right? So
Mhm.
in a way, it's a callback function. If I want to triple it, all I'm going to pass is, multiply by 3, and it triples every value, right? So map function in itself is a generic function. And it says, okay, I can map anything. You need to tell me what do you want to do with every single element, right?
Mhm.
So we don't know the inner works of map function, but we are in a simplest form. Map function takes one array and it produces another array, right? What you want to do with each element, you need to pass as a callback function, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, if I want to, let's say, make everything 0, I would just say return 0, and every element in that becomes 0, right? If you say
Okay,
0,
should we do
yeah,
it?
if you say 0, everything becomes 0, right? So no matter what you pass, it returns 0, right? So that this is very useful in that function. There are multiple of these kind of a built-in function, like map is one function. There is a reduce function, then there is a filter function,
Filter function, yeah.
which allows you to do, uh, this kind of stuff, right? You can make your own as well, but this is the concept that uh, it, yeah, somebody, yeah,
So,
Angie.
and this one you can add, this is like we call it like, it's more like a holder, right? Because we are not really declaring it.
Mhm.
So it's gonna help us. So you can call it anything you want. So in this case, yeah, ×2. So we can return that. You can also call it hello, but these two parts, they need to match.
Yeah.
And it's part of the syntax. So just remember that. So yeah, you can call it anything you want. Just these two need to match. Yeah. So yeah, I know it's a little confusing because you don't have to declare it.
Yeah, you have to
I-
use it. Yeah, that's the part. I mean, unless you use it, it becomes very difficult to understand.
Yeah, I have seen it sometimes they call it just E, right? I don't know. I have seen it in some exercises. I was like,
Yeah,
what
you
is
can
E?
call it anything, element basically. Yeah,
Is that element? Yeah.
you can call
So
it
yeah.
anything.
I just have a question. So, because we changed the values of that array, so if we print the array numbers, what is it gonna print? 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, or is gonna print
Can we
the
console log
element?
the array, Professor?
Array doesn't change. Yeah,
Array doesn't change, but
yeah,
can we
it,
just like print it like this? I don't know.
yeah. I think console.
Sometimes I'm confused with Java.
Yeah, yeah. You can do that. I
Yeah,
think.
it didn't let me. So
No,
I
it's
think
a
we had to put it
con.
in
No, you con. I think the console.
oh, it's
Yeah,
my
yeah,
typo.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, that was me. I think in Java you cannot just like print
Mhm.
and have to iterate. Yeah. So this is your original and this is the other one. So this is a nice thing about it that you don't change it. And actually here we are reassigning like in the new
It
creating this
returns
new
a new
array.
array. Yeah, it returns a new array.
Yeah. Did that help, Angie?
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, we can also do this with with letters. So we do name. Let's do Angie. So I do that. Okay, let's do that. And then here, let's do cons. Name array. So this one, I'm going to reassign it to a new cons, and that's because I'm going to split your name to make it an array, because right now it's just string, so it's not an array. So we need to use something that's called split. This is something that we view in the lectures when we're seeing the strings, right, Professor? We see the string methods.
Yeah, it's one of the
It's
string
one of
methods,
the one of the string methods. So we do new name. Now we do the function here. So name array. We're gonna map this. So I'm actually doing mine that has the split, because here is what I just break the maybe you want to see it actually before maybe the students wants to see it. So if I console log name array like that. So you see now Angie is an array just by using the split, but before it was not. So basically I'm just applying the method here, the string method. So now we have the map. So as we talked before, you can use any letter here. So I'm going to use that, and then let's do a double letters. Something that you can use to use more dynamic code is the Pike. What is the name of this one? The Pike. What is the name of this one? I forgot the name. It's like this key that we have on the top.
template string, yeah.
Yeah, so and you can turn this into more dynamic codes here. So we're gonna pass this value here, and we're gonna do it twice, and then we can just console log the new name. And so log. So we console log, let's just see what's going on. Sometimes it's good to check what you're doing, because then you are coding, and then it doesn't work. Like, yeah, we can see here. Oh, it's not a reference. Why is not a reference? Oh, because this should be an error. Yeah, sorry, was my bad. So sometimes it's good to check what you're doing. You see, when I did the error, it changed the color. So now we have doubles here. So this helps us to make it dynamic. And so now that we know this is how we want it, but this is not displaying the way we want it. So we're gonna have it back to attach together. So that we're gonna use another say another string method. Let's close, say join new name, just to be descriptive. New name, join. So we're gonna remove that's gonna help us to remove the what's here. And then console log, and we can do the join your name. That's the one that we want. Yeah. So click that, let's run it, and we can see all the steps that we did. Let me see if I have any typos. Oh yeah. So yeah, you can. So if you want to change the string, you have to turn it into an array, because strings are not mutable, but arrays are mutable. So so then you can do changes on the string and put it back together. I know there are a lot of steps to change the string. They're not as flexible as numbers or arrays. So yeah. Yeah, if you see, like we use again the map, and here we're using like we said before, this can be any value. In this, we are using an L for letter, but it can also be an E or any other letter. And that's what you're going to use here. And you can be creative and do a lot of things. Okay, so Yeah, I don't know if there are any other questions. I know this looks very advanced. It needs practice. And yeah, only with practice you will make the perfection. But this one. So now, okay, and
Yeah, I don't understand line 17. Why L is printing that? That's confusing.
so this L is very similar to this. So it's the same value. So what we're changing, if you see after the arrow function, we are, well, in this case, we're making it dynamic. This is a way to do dynamic code. I don't know how to explain this one, Professor Bay.
Oh, you can
This is
also try to simplify. You can do L plus L. I think that would do the same thing.
But
So-
L, what's the value of L?
So L is basically so if you look at the name is ng, right? And so when we split it, you get an array of, you know, each character inside each element. So if you think of an array with A, N, G, I, and E, right?
Yeah.
And so the map function, what it does, it says inside the map function, remember the callback function, you can say, what do I do with each element in this array, right?
Mhm.
So the first part is L, which means each element, think of that way. You can even call each element, doesn't matter, right?
Oh, I
so
And
this
then,
can be a knee.
yeah, so think of E as each element, right? And
Mhm.
then I am saying, I'm gonna pass each element, and then the arrow means, what am I gonna get back at the end of it, right? I'm gonna get E plus E, which means, let's say E would be, let's say the first letter is A, right? In NG.
Yeah.
So I pass A, and I'm gonna get A plus A, which means AA, right? Then I
Okay.
pass N, then I get N plus N, which is NN, right?
Makes sense now. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
so the callback function, if you think of it, is basically, what do I do with each element in this case,
That makes
right?
sense.
I can even say E plus E plus E. That makes it A N N N G G G I N E E, right?
Mhm. Yeah, you can add one more if you want.
So so
So
that's a dynamic part, right? It makes it very easy to do this kind of things, right?
Mhm.
Like you,
and this is like a placeholder. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, Professor, I cut you.
No. That is how you want to see it, right? Like it helps you so this function, map function, it helps you operate in every single array element, right? If you want to pass an array and you want to do something with every element, so it returns the array with the same size, but every element is transformed based on what you pass in this function, right? What the function. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's why
each
it's called
element
map.
of the array.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can
So
double something, or I can
yeah.
triple something, or I can erase something, right? Yeah, but so you can do something with each element, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I do have one last exercise. Yeah. Yeah, because those are good questions. Do we need to use const to use when we define variables in this context? So can we do with the let? I have always done it with the const.
Yeah, not necessarily. It's a const means you cannot use equal sign again. That's what it means.
To reassign, yeah.
Yeah, you cannot reassign the value if you use const. So you want to use const anywhere you don't want you don't want to use equal sign again, right? So if you want to define name equal to ng, and then you want to
Can be a let.
change to, let's say, Raven, right?
Mhm.
Then you want to set it as let, because that would let you do that. But if you
Yeah,
don't want user to change it, you can say const.
I do as a professor. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, so this will let you do that. But if it's const, it won't let you use equal sign
yeah.
again.
If it's a const, we're not later. Yeah, yeah. Cool.
This is how
Okay,
my mother calls me when she's angry. When she's angry.
Yeah. That's good practice, yeah. Okay, so our last one. This is related to what we were doing last class. There was the array. So let's see how we can use our map when we have an array. So, sorry, icons, names. Call this, and that one. So I'm gonna have my objects here. So it'll be name. And put Hamel. Let's put professors. Let's put that he likes. Let's assign. It's like Cody. Okay, let's do another one. Just gonna copy and paste. That's a lot easier to make this faster. So I'm gonna add Justin. It's not here, but in case he's watching a video, he likes design. Design, yeah. I'm gonna add myself. I would say that I like cats. Say coding too, yeah, very serious here. Okay, oh, not comment this one. And this one, he like this. So, okay, so if we want to iterate to each of this one and get our name, this is the way that we would do it. So I'm going to declare again names by like. I have name. We're going to map. That's that. We're going to map. So here we're going to have an item. This can be an E. This can be yeah, but right now we're going to leave it item. So we're going to use our arrow function here. And then we're going to have our parentheses here. And we're going to need a new container. So I'm going to declare a new container. And then here, this is going to be empty. It's going to be an object. And now we're going to do our container. And now we're going to have our item. If you remember in the last class, we were seeing the dot, like how you can access the values with the dots. So that's the way that we're going to do it. So this is going to be assigned to item likes. So we close that. And then let's return, because this is a function. We need to redo container, because this is what we want to container. I typo. So this is what we want to get. So let's do console log. I'm going to console log my function. So let's clear this. Maybe I'm just gonna comment this, that way we don't get distracted with the other one. Yeah, I'm gonna all the way to here. Okay, cool. So then if we run this, we're gonna get we're getting the inner value. These are other objects. So if you see, we are not getting our tasks right here. So that's kind of what we want. And we can access the values with the, we want, if all of us like, right? And now here, if you want to do something else here, like in this case, like seeing the length of like maybe the names. So we can do container. No, of letters in name. Item, again, we're using the item from over here, so we use multiple times. So name that length. So let's run it, and that should give us like the length of the name. Yeah, we can also get the likes if we want. I think we can get the likes. So yeah. And yeah, so we can also access our arrays. And this way using the arrow function. If you see it's iterating, again, we have a holder here. This can be an E, can be any other one, other name in case if you see when I remove the top, it changed the color. So that's because when I remove it here, it's not declared. So that's why all of them changed. But when I have it there, it's already recognizing this is going to be an element that we're going to be using. So if I clear this and I run it again, it's just a holder that's going to help me to display each element in the array. So yeah. Cool. So I don't know if you have anything to ask Professor Hamel.
No, yeah, this is a good use case.
Yeah, I just want to show this one because we were doing the objects in the array last week. So yeah. And adding one more to show them that they can customize it to other things. Yes, Angie.
Sorry. I just
Sorry.
want to ask, why is this printing no of letters in likes? I don't see what line code is this printed.
Which one? This one?
In the console log, yeah, in the console log, it's printing none of letters in likes.
Oh, it's this one. So you can change it. Yeah, it's this one. You can remove it if you want. It's just counting the letters here. So we are displaying the length of this one. So you can do it with the names if you want to do names. So you can change this to be the names. The names, I'm taking the likes from here and the name from here. So I'm calling the key, and that's how we are pulling the value to get the length. I don't know. I don't know if maybe I'm confusing you more, but yeah, but that's
I just
that's
got
the thing.
confused because of the dot notation. So thinking maybe that's like it.
Yeah, you can change this to be other things. Maybe this can be name length if you want to do more. I don't know, I guess it's open. Let me see. We just created a new label here. Is that helping? I don't know.
Yeah, so this is pretty much like the exercise we did before, right? We are creating a new container and getting stuff or changing values or counting, in this case, how many characters.
Yes. In this case, what happened is we have a name component, right? And a name array. And then when we do the map, it takes each element and does something with it, right? In this case, we are saying for each element, just change the name, change the create a new element called name, and then whatever the name is, take the name here in this case, which is our names, right? And then the value is what we like, right? And then we are adding another element there, which is name length, right? So that's what we are getting. So it's almost like a transforming, your array with something completely different, right? But the number of elements is the same. You can see because map returns exactly the same number of elements. Yeah.
Yeah, it's adding, if you remember, like we are not changing the original array. We are just creating a new, we have a new array here. And so we can set new, this is a key and a value, so we can add new ones. Yeah, so if we are just creating a new one, we are not changing this one. I guess we can print, right? We can print this one if I do,
yeah.
Name. And we run it. We can see here that this one says about the length. This is our first one. First one because I have it here first. But the original is here. We haven't changed it. We are just assigning to a new array. But if you see here, we are if we are not returning the container, we are not going to get anything. So we also need to the return. That's why in the functions it's very important to have it to access the information that's inside that. So if I delete the return and we try to run it, it's just we are just going to get undefined. So that's why it's very important to have the return to be able to like access the values. So yeah, now that I put it back so we can see it again, everything is there. So yeah, if you want to create a new well, add new key in a value in your array with this, well, create a new object, you can do it this way. So I just want to show you that. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. So I think that this is everything I have, Professor. I don't know if you want to expand in any of the topics.
No, yeah, this is good. Yeah, this kind of function is a huge field. I would rather have you guys practice a little bit, and then if you have any questions, otherwise it becomes an overdose, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I'm still working on the homework. Sorry, like I will have it tomorrow. So I want to pass it to you, Professor Hamel. I don't want to do something that's too complicated for the students, and I want them to practice the functions.
Okay. And I'll upload the video tonight, yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys can wait for the homework until tomorrow, that would be great.
Okay,
I'm just gonna
sounds good.
prepare it to
Sounds
don't
good.
make it too complicated and have it approved before that. Okay,
Yep, sounds good.
cool. So yeah, that's everything I have. So I'll stop sharing. So yeah, any questions from the students before I stop sharing? It is so good. I know it's a lot, and you're probably gonna have to rewatch this video and probably watch some YouTube videos. That also helps. And yeah, so yeah, I'll stop this. Yeah. Oh. I can share the notes if you guys want them and the Slack. I don't know if that helps, but I can share some of the exercises we did today in case you couldn't follow. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so I don't know, any questions from the students? No? Do we stop the recording, Professor?
Let me do that. Where's the recording?